Welcome to episode 179 of the Startup Show. Today, Michael, the CEO and co-founder of PXL Vision, is stopping by here at the studio, and we are talking about his first company that he sold to Magic Leap. Then we talk about PXL Vision and how they are revolutionizing the digital identification process. And last but not least, why it's so important to take the first step in entrepreneurship. Make sure you stay tuned for the whole video. Welcome to episode 179 of the Startup Show. Today we are here at the studio and I'm very excited to meet with the CEO and co-founder of PXL Vision, Michael. Michael, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's really a pleasure. Such a celebrity we don't have too often here. So maybe quickly introduce yourself to my audience, like exactly who you are and a little but of background about yourself.
Sure. I'm Michael, CEO of PXL Vision. I was also founder and CFO of Dacuda AG. Some of the audience might have heard before. This is a scanner mouse and later 3D scanning company. Studied at the University of St. Gallen and then went into consulting. But I always wanted to set up a company. Also had a small company during the university. And so I became an entrepreneur and here I am.
Yes. I mean, Karim, your co-founder, he actually asked me to really ask you, here on the record, why you actually wanted to become an entrepreneur. What inspired you?
Usually it's not a decision, I want to become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I think it's always a little bit maybe in my blood, or thinking back, it's always easy to kind of make sense of what an individual has done. But I think I was always a little bit entrepreneurial in the sense that I set up my own soccer club when I was young. I think the very first event when I was entrepreneurial in that sense, I think was when I was 5 or 6, when we did this, the kids, they would walk around with, sugar canes, you hollow out sugar canes and then you put a candle in it.
Yes.
So we did this, but then we had all this rubbish and I thought, okay,
why not to sell it?
Why not to sell it? So I went around in the neighborhood and sold it. And my parents didn't really approve this or were happy about it, but it worked. And I thought, well, why this works? And I really saw you really can, I could buy more sugar canes and do this again and again. So I think this entrepreneurial virus was always a little bit there in my life. Later on, we would have at high school a class called Die Gründung einer Unternehmung, so setting up an own company. And I really was thrilled and wanted to go and really looked forward to the next 2 lessons. And so also had other interests, of course, and then studied something entirely different. But there were some occasions in my life when I really felt this virus. And this is also why I set up, I guess, when I went abroad. For 1 year, I also met an individual who inspired me a lot, I think. But then I set up this company called Air Chair, hanging like a hammock, hanging chair. And I imported this from Canada and later on from South Africa to Switzerland and then sold it. And that's how I basically financed my studies. So it wasn't a specific decision to become an entrepreneur, but something which I guess was inside me.
Probably in a lot of the interviews you give, you talk about Dacuda, so I really want to talk about it a little bit before. February 20th, 2017, probably a day you remember. Maybe can you just quickly elaborate what happened on that day, or at least what was the story that led up to that day?
I think it was February 10.
I mean, online it said 20, but
20, okay.
I'm not going to argue about it.
I guess this was the day when we sold the major part of Dacuda.
Yeah.
So we sold this to Magic Leap after we had created some technologies which suddenly were of interest to all the big guys in the world. So what we have actually done was to develop 3D scanning technology, where you could scan with your smartphone, for example, just your face in real time. And then you would have a 3D representation of your face. And the reason why this was suddenly so seeked by all the companies was that you could actually position a mobile phone in the 3D space in, very precisely and very fast. So you didn't need external devices. So Apple was here, Oculus was here, HTC, Canon, like all the big companies. And ultimately we sold it to Magic Leap from Florida, a huge startup with more than 2 billion investment.
Yes.
And
no
of course,
product.
this was
no
public product. I have seen it. I think it's actually very good. I really think this could be a very, very great story. And of course, this was a great success. The guys who now work at Magic Leap, of course, they work with an industry leader in this field. And we were also able to create more jobs in Switzerland. So they really wanted to build up a European headquarter. Right now, there are more than 70 people. So this has worked out quite nicely. And it is an important date, I think, in my life. Yeah.
One of the things that is obviously always interesting when someone sold their company is how come you decided so quickly after? I mean, 2017 you sold it, now we're in 2019 and you already have your new company. How come you didn't stay with Dacuda at this time and decide to actually do your own kind of spin off from Dacuda?
It was a choice, but also an opportunity. So this Magic Leap deal, basically they were interested in the 3D business. This is what they bought. At the same time, we had a team and some products and some customers which are completely independent from the 3D business. So rather than just joining Magic Leap, which would have been interesting to work in such a big organization, and also the financial package would have been more than okay, but still I wanted to have something entrepreneurial. And having this opportunity there with a team which works, we have been working together since 2010 basically, and the guys were more than happy to join me. We developed all the IP and technologies ourselves from scratch, but still a lot of know-how is of course in the brains of the people. So this was a huge opportunity and a very entrepreneurial opportunity. And why not grab it if it's there?
For sure.
And it's a lot of fun.
It's
just building up things was always what I really liked. Also when I was a consultant, to see things grow, to plan the growth. So I was actually happy enough to be able to do some growth strategies. And this is all, I find this fascinating when you build something more or less from scratch and where you don't know exactly where you're going. You have a rough idea, of course, some vision, but then you have to find your way.
Absolutely.
And this is what I think is fascinating.
I mean, in a recent interview, I didn't really check when you gave that interview at CNN Money Switzerland. You said the hardest as an entrepreneur is to find out what the future brings. But the question is that's hard for everybody. If I knew the lottery tomorrow, that's kind of we'd solve a lot of issues. But can you maybe explain kind of how do you do that for yourself? That you say you believed in Dacuda, but you also now believe in PXL Vision so much. What is it that you see in the future that you would say this is why you decided to become an entrepreneur? Or maybe not entrepreneur. Sorry, I'm saying that you work on these topics.
I think the statement you're referring to, I said, there's many challenges which you have as an entrepreneur, many decisions to take, but I find the most difficult decisions to actually know what you're betting your money on. As a tech entrepreneur, you usually have to believe in a certain product, and then you invest usually a couple of millions into this product. And of course, you can't bet that many times. Unless you have very deep pockets, but usually, you have a
few times.
and so how to do this? It's very hard. I guess it's a mix of doing some market research, checking an opportunity, speaking to customers, which is probably the most important thing, that you see something is moving, so some traction. Yeah. But then again, at the end, it's always a little bit of leap of faith, because to know how consumers will ultimately behave. And the older I get, I think the less I know.
Yes.
It's sometimes very hard to foresee.
Let's talk about your startup. Maybe you can tell us a little bit, just first, straight up pitch, what is PXL Vision for everybody who does not know yet?
And so PXL Vision is about digital identity. So we have created a platform to actually create, manage digital identities. Mm-hmm. What does this mean? Today, more and more business is being done online, of course. So you transact online, but then often you also need to prove that you're actually you. So this may be in regulated industries like banking or telco. This may also be in not so regulated industries where it still matters that I actually know who I transact with. For example, if you buy something very expensive and the seller wants to know. This could also be if you have a platform like, for example, Tutor24 is a customer of us. Like this is when you get tutorials for your kids. So you might want to know who is actually teaching my kids. And is this guy trustworthy? So there's a lot of use cases where where it adds value when you know who is my counterparty. And so we have a technology where you can identify and verify yourself by scanning passports and IDs, by then doing a video selfie, so we do actually face verification. So we compare the face with the photo on the image document. We also have technologies to actually prove that you're a live person in front of the camera and not just, an image which you hold in front of the camera. And some other technologies basically to manage this verification process. For example, telco. So our biggest customers today are in telco. Like we have Sunrise, 2 other big telcos in Switzerland, which I need to check if I'm actually allowed to say.
I mean, there's some of them on the website.
By the end of the year, we're going to have 4 out of the 5 biggest telcos in Switzerland as customers. We also got Swiss ID as a customer. Which is actually a great success for the company. We're very proud of it.
Yeah, I mean, like Markus Neff, who introduced us, he was on episode 166, so already a while back from Swiss Sign. But like, maybe can you briefly explain? I mean, these are all like these big, let's call them big corporates that like integrate your tech into some of their products. How is the end user using your product?
So it depends on the customer. Actually, in the case of Sunrise, for example, he just downloads the Sunrise ID Checker app. So he wouldn't really notice that it's a PXL Vision inside. For most other customers at this stage, that's how it is. We're also now doing identity as a service software where the customer actually downloads the product Dacuda or uses Dacuda. We'll also bring a web version of this. So then it's clear it's Dacuda made by PXL Vision. It's an app where you use it for verification, and it's usually the last step of a sales process where you need to verify yourself.
What is the tech behind it? Like if you look at your product that like is so, let's say, unique to other, let's say, startups or companies that work on this issue, what would you say is it that makes your tech so unique, and what is it that it's behind it?
Well, first of all, it's a combination of computer vision algorithms and machine learning algorithms. We basically own the tech for all the different modules of this whole process. Many competitors actually license in a lot of things, so we decided, okay, we want to own all the technologies. What makes us different is certain modules where we really have a very, very good tech and accuracy rates. I think we have a very flexible product also, so the customer can really choose which modules he wants, where should it run, should it be on-premise, or does he want to use our backbone infrastructure, what business rules does he want to apply. So in detail, this verification process is actually very detailed. I don't want to bore you or the public with all these details, but they can choose from quite a lot of options how you want to actually treat your customers, what you want to play back to the customers, what part of the processes you want to do in the back end, and so on. So I think we're very flexible.
And the business model works on licensing, I guess. Like the customer can choose what kind of models they want, and then they pay per license.
Yes, it's always a combination of license fees, transaction fees, sometimes maintenance fees. They're very standard.
Sure. I checked Crunchbase and a couple of other sources, and I saw like you recently had a funding round with 6. That's what's public knowledge. What's kind of like the road ahead of you in terms of funding?
Yeah, so when we started PXL Vision, we said, okay, let's focus on technology and on the customers, and basically let's not look left and right. Let's just create it. Later on, we saw, okay, this actually it's a huge market. It's a very fast growing market, but there's also a lot of competition, obviously. And we said, okay, we really need to move fast. So that's why we decided we go for a growth financing round. After having proven the case here in Switzerland, we really want to have a scalable product, or a more scalable product. This is the identity as a service product. and we want to scale internationally. So this is about sales expansion, international expansion. So for this, we said, we can't grow. We never had investment so far, so it's really customer financed so far. But then we said, let's move fast.
Yes.
So Six is on board now. ZKB is on board. Private individual David Studer is on board. And now we're closing the larger round. So there's going to be a few other investors, which I obviously can't tell. Not allowed to tell yet, but we're just about in the closing process, or probably going to close before the end of the year. That's the plan. And this will be a larger investment round to finance this.
I mean, like Six, usually, if I'm informed correctly, only invest strategically. Like they want to kind of like invest in companies where they see like a fit for their business model. How do you integrate with Six?
Well, of course, Six very strong in the financial service sector, and obviously like mobile or digital customer onboarding is a very relevant process in this industry. Also for us, financial industries are probably becoming the most important vertical. At least it's the largest vertical from a market perspective. So that's also why we said, okay, we need to have a partner or an investor who can add value in these financial services. And from this perspective, of course, Six, with all these contacts, was a perfect fit.
Sure. I mean, one of the special things about your team is that like you've been working together for over 10 years, if I'm informed correctly. How did you form this team, and like how were you able, let's say, to stick together, making sure like you always complementing each other?
More than 10 years, I think. With Karim, I'm working together since 2010, and with the others like 11, 12, something like this. So it's been a long time. It's been a long time. First of all, I think we would not have started this whole venture if we had not known, okay, this really works. We know each other very well at the end of the day.
Yes.
And it's fun to work together with them. We had a number of years of experience, so it was quite obvious. But of course, everyone had to ask himself, okay, do I really want to make this step? And maybe even more so for my co-founders, do I want to do the step from being employed at a company now to really,
to really work? That's what you wanted to say.
And sometimes it's actually fun, and you have to take decisions, whereas before they might have
had other roles,
had their opinion about certain decisions. Now they need to do themselves. So sometimes it's actually quite funny.
Yeah.
But
now, when you look at, let's say, Pixel in the next couple of months and years, what is kind of like the road ahead of you? What are you planning?
Well, at the end of the day, we need to win customers and to establish ourselves in the market. Of course, it's not a piece of cake. As I said, like there's a lot of other companies with similar service offerings. So step number one is to actually strengthen our position in Switzerland, also in other industries, then to expand internationally. So this is the most important thing. If we manage to really grow and have all these users, then we can think what we actually really do. There's a lot of opportunities or also business model changes which we could apply. But which I'm usually a friend of, having your list and doing your homework, and then once we're there, we can elaborate on this. Of course, I have my plans, but let's talk about it once we're there.
When you're now looking at going out to potential clients that you want to sell PXL Vision as kind of like the product, what would you say is the market? Are they receiving like this well, or are they saying like we don't really understand yet why they need it? Is the market there yet for this company product, or is it still like early in the process?
The need, at least for certain industries, is obvious. I mean, everyone transforms from paper-based business to digital business. For some industries, there is regulation and there's an obvious need, and they know sometimes they have a solution, sometimes they don't. In other industries, it really just starts, I think. Either you just want to differentiate yourself from the market by allowing verified users and creating trust. So this is more, my platform is different than the other platform. So this could be. With other industries, you really might have a fraud problem where business just doesn't happen because people don't trust each other. Crimes might happen. Which might not happen if you actually know who's going to be there. I mean, shared economy, the common topic.
Sure.
Also, transactions like, I don't know, hiring a car, you just want to be sure the car comes back.
Yes.
There's many use cases, actually.
Yes. What I understand from this, that like you are not, and I saw it also online, it's not just for people recognition and identification, you can also do objects?
Right now, we do people. Yeah. Of course, identity of objects, huge topic. As a startup, you should be focused. So we're really focusing on the individual at this stage. Of course, there's is the market ready for it? There's also a whole topic, of course, digital identity on the blockchain, for example. This is also a topic which we had very well studied, where we actually even created a white paper about it, where we will be ready once the market is ready. Right now, we don't think it's already there. It's a fast evolving market, and we'll see a change over the next 10 years, which may be fundamental in the sense that it's really a shift from paper-based, central digital identity to really digital identity, which may be even decentralized and self-sovereign. So this might be an exciting journey.
Right. I mean, that brings me right to the next question, Liz. It's probably my favorite part of each interview is kind of like, where do you see, like when we move away a little bit, let's say from Pixel, and we think of kind of like the industry of digital identity verification online, where do you see this in, let's say, 10 years? Like, what will be the status quo if today, like, you have your passport and your ID, like, what is it that it's going to be in the future? So, and not in 12 months, like really, like, 10 years from now.
Of course. Well, I think a government ID will always be there in some way or the other.
Sure.
However, I really think there might be much more decentral elements that you really own your digital identity. You decide how digital identity is created. This might be a more global digital identity also. You might be able to create it yourself if you're a refugee, or and you don't have an authority who gives you digital identity. You might just create it through and then get it strengthened or through trust systems. Yes. Whether this is going to be fully on a blockchain or not, let's see. I believe this could be the case. So I think it could be a fundamental change at the end of the day, that you're less dependent on some government to actually give you digital or an identity as such, and also a digital identity.
Would you say like there's the possibility that like will be kind of like one nation globally, where it's just about ID and not maybe about country?
Well, I studied international relations, and I know that there's, power matters, and countries will probably not disappear so quickly, and they will have a say also in the future, I believe, at least in the near future, speaking of 10 years. Nevertheless, I think there might be actually a more accepted, globally accepted digital identity. Maybe not all countries will accept, but maybe some that allows you maybe to travel, maybe to transact internationally. And I believe you might actually become a bit less dependent on a single government identity.
I would like to talk a little bit about the ecosystem here in Switzerland. Specifically, I saw you're an ETH spin-off, or at least you have the logo on your website. How did, let's say, the academic world help you now for PXL Vision?
Well, since also at Dacuda and also at PXL Vision, Switzerland is a very good place for tech startups, I think. Maybe a bit less for if it's just pure e-commerce, so there's maybe other, Berlin and other places maybe better still. But for technology, I think there's actually a lot of support from various organizations and the government. So for us, ETH, of course, was important. Number one, you get very good access to key talent and very good professors, especially in the computer vision area. So there's at least 3 world-class chairs there, which is great. Of course, to some extent the network also. Then you get access to Swiss money. I mean, you must have heard this many times before, and I think
that like curious to hear, like how you feel.
The ecosystem is really good for tech startups. Of course, ETH also from a standing is just something which also adds a lot of trust at the end of the day.
So I spoke to someone at VentureLab who said that like you were actually a participant and in VentureLab, but also now a coach. So you probably have like this interesting perspective, like from both sides of the table.
I mean, when I went to Venture Challenge, it was called. This was more than 10 years ago. And of course, I knew not that much about startup and so on. I had done a few years of consulting.
Yes.
I didn't learn that much like content-wise at the course, but I really wanted to go there to meet interesting people, interesting ideas, to learn more about startup. And this was a very good opportunity, especially because it was like tech people and tech mindset I got exposed to. And it really gave us the kick to start. So I think this was a really, really good initiative that first of all we get connected to some investors and some key individuals of the startup networks. We also got kind of encouraged. So at the end of the course, we would they tell us, oh yeah, do this and I pay you for the patent lawyer. I didn't patent there, but it gave really a kick. And then also these initiatives like Venture Kick was really good. Like we won the first 10,000 francs when nobody else, maybe not even ourselves, would really put a lot of money on the table. I mean, at this time we also did not have any money, or most of the people of the team. So this was really, really good initiatives which help people in a very early stage to believe and to dream and then to actually make the first step. And I think making the first step is really the most difficult, but also most important step in a startup, because once you stepped out of your door and then you see new things, and then many things, of course, you have to work hard, but many things would fall into place. Find out new things, you meet new people. It's a big journey at the end of the day, but you need to make the first step, and for this, all these startup initiatives are very good. As a coach and I think they call it expert. It's, of course, a very rewarding experience. Also, I think it's important that people give something back to the system. So I'm actually happy to, give something back to help others create their own startups. So I think I'm more than happy to contribute there.
I mean, the ecosystem here, specifically in Switzerland or Zurich, is rather small compared to, let's say, other ecosystems. Is there anything that you would say, like in particular, that can be, let's say, improved?
There's probably many topics, and there's also a lot of initiatives going on. I think one topic was in the area of how you treat founders tax-wise. There was the obvious topic of investments, USB funding. I think it has improved a lot. But this was, of course, really a shame that, if you get in Zurich the first million, you get quite easily. Then the next 5 to 10 is actually terribly hard, or it used to be. So I think this is slowly changing. It would probably be good if we also had some, we have a lot of large companies here, but I still feel that also the major exits, it's quite often from American companies. So we should ask ourselves, should we really sell early to American companies? So there, I think would maybe help to ensure that we create more big companies, like quite often, maybe not so much in the tech space, but certainly in the e-commerce and space. Usually it's a winner takes it all kind of, or quite often it's a winner takes it all market. And I have just seen too many companies which start kind of in the same level, but then don't get the acceleration and the big investment to actually make it to number one. Then they disappear. I mean, today, everything which is on my smartphone, all the apps, I have one page on my smartphones with all the apps which I use daily, but it's probably 4 out of 5 is probably American companies like Google and Facebook and so on. Facebook, not so much actually, but Evernote, another good example, Evernote.
How did you get your first ever paying client?
We basically were very close to get Sunrise as a customer. We had an existing customer relationship, and we just closed the deal.
Okay, it's rather simple. How do you maintain the work-life balance?
Well, first of all, I think it matters a lot, and I produced two children, so I don't have much choice to. If you're home, and you're like can't avoid. Yeah. So it's a natural, I think, natural way to just interact with the children, to enjoy the work-life balance. But I really try to also keep this up, because this gives you a lot of energy.
What would you say is your biggest fear?
I'm not a person with a lot of fears, so it's a tough one. But maybe to look back sometime and to acknowledge that you did not have the courage to try something out.
What would you say is a successful entrepreneur?
Successful entrepreneur, I think, is when you manage to create some jobs, to maintain it, to sell your products, and to have a functioning company for at least a certain number of time. And of course, this would not be my ambition, what I just said, but I think, also entrepreneurs who maybe just have their smaller business and they run it I think they're also successful entrepreneurs in that sense. Yes. Of course, I'd like to accelerate a bit more. Sure. and create a bigger company.
Yeah. So what is success in life for you?
Well, to me, it would be that I actually contribute a bit more than just keeping myself happy and alive, that I'm able to give back something to society and that I still enjoy it at the same time. One thing I already told people, get out there and have the courage to make the first step, have the courage to dream, to think how things might be and not to see just how things are today. So I think first step, very, very important. But I said this before, so I say something else. If you're an entrepreneur, make sure you always have alternatives for everything. Create options. It's really about options, because things will turn out different than you think, be it in recruiting, be it in finding investors, being it with customers. So create options, and of course, don't forget to enjoy the ride. It's a roller coaster, but try to enjoy whatever happens.
Sure. But would you say these options are better if they're presented to you, or if you're actively seeking them?
You'll always have a plan B. That's maybe how to put it in other words, yes. Because things will turn out differently than you think. So better have a plan B.
Yes, but reality is you have to seek them.
Yes.
They're not just coming.
I think so.
Michael, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody who watched today. Make sure you stay a few more seconds so you see who is up next Monday. And I'll see you there. Have a great week.
Hi everyone, my name is Yannick. I'm one of the co-founders of Backbone Ventures. Please make sure to tune in next Monday, where we will be talking about Backbone Ventures, about in which startups we have invested and how we perceive the future.